Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work and create, the Kumbameri people of the Yungumbeh Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Hello and welcome to A Nourished Woman, the podcast. I am your host, Mikka Raer. This is a conversational series created to guide women towards a more true, whole, fulfilling and joyful way of living. Together with some truly incredible guests, we embrace what connects us to our vitality and some of the ways that we can nourish our minds, bodies and soul. A nourished woman represents a return to wholeness and reclamation of our innate wisdom, our body's intelligence, our appetite for life, and our capacity for joy, play and pleasure. It's about moving beyond mere survival and embodying a nourishing and generative mode of living that is aligned with our values, our energy, our desires, and honours the season of life we are in. Thank you for being here. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back to A Nourished Woman, the podcast, this time in 2024. I hope that you had a beautiful, soft, spacious and nourishing Christmas and New Year period. I'm very excited to continue with season 1 of the podcast, and today I am joined by Tara Franca. Tara is a writer, dancer and homeschooling mother. Behind everything she does is the deep desire to create intimacy and bring people together, to each other and most importantly to themselves. Alongside her work as a copywriter at Bold Heart Creative, Tara's substack, titled A Deeper Love, holds hands with mothers as they fall in love with themselves and reclaim their experience of motherhood. She is also the host of Her Homeschooling Era Podcast, a podcast for mums in business who homeschool. And she also runs weekly dance classes on the Sunshine Coast where mums bring their kids and watch mum have some fun. Tara is warm and engaging and a very, very important person in my life. She has taught me the importance of enrichment at the core of everything we do, be our work, in business, in relationships, and most importantly in motherhood. This episode was actually the very first one I recorded this season, and that felt really special. In this conversation, we discuss the tools Tara draws upon to nourish herself, the ways Tara finds time for herself whilst being a mother, how to navigate the different roles of life during motherhood, teaching, going beyond schooling, creative practices to integrate into the everyday, the power of music, the seasons of motherhood and entrepreneurship, and the gift of food in our life. As always, I hope you enjoy. Beautiful Tara. The first question I want to ask you is, how would you describe the current season of life that you're in?
Current season of life that I'm in. I've actually been reflecting on this a lot because I think that sometimes we just forget that life is in seasons, and I've just, you kind of do that comparison thing of like, but why is this happening in my life compared to other times? So I've really had to kind of sink my teeth into like, no, this is the season and this is my relationship to this season. So for me right now, I'm 15 months postpartum from having my second babe, and I'm very much in the season of still being like a fresh-ish new mother again. And I'm in a season of deep family focus alongside this like surge of new creative energy at the same time. So it feels like it's a season of really relearning how those things work together. And yeah, really that is the season of life that I feel like I'm in right now. It's this merging together of family and creativity in a way that really just honors the freshness of feeling brand new in many ways, and getting to do everything from a place of like a lot more compassion, but at the same time, you know, letting myself get excited for the newness versus like, oh, things aren't necessarily the same as they were like a year ago, 2 years ago. So that's how I would describe my current season.
Yeah, I love that. And like you've gone through a really giant, well, actually, I would say a series of transitions because you have had your second child. You've also moved across the country from WA to the Sunshine Coast. And so do you think that the freshness comes from like finally feeling like you've landed where you guys are now? And sort of how have you found the going through those transitions at the same time? Like how have you navigated that?
Probably not well in many ways, but at the same time, there's just been this kind of like, there's that momentum, there's kind of like that force behind you that's kind of like, yep, everything is in the perfect timing, just roll with the things as they're moving. You know, the more you hold on, the more you grip tightly to anything, the harder it's going to be. So just go with the flow. And so there's been a lot of just kind of like, I don't know how this is working out. I don't know where this is going exactly, but I know that it just feels like I'm meant to put one foot in front of the other. And so with the transitions of like, yes, having a baby, moving across the country, and then within that, I felt like there's also just been so many micro transitions in terms of like identity and work and all these other things. I feel like what's grounded me through that has been just, I guess, like just the daily, you know, commitment to like, okay, this is where we are now. This is what we're doing. What do I need right now? What do we need right now? And anchoring into like, as long as I'm acknowledging, you know, what's real today, I don't really need to worry about tomorrow. And that's been a bit of a practice.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's like true presence, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you've seen me speak a lot about like matrescence and all of that. I felt like there's just been so much changing and transforming over the last 18 months that I feel like when you're coming at it from this sense of like, who am I again? What, you know, what value do I hold? Where do I want to go? What are my desires? All the questions start rolling. And then you throw into that mix like this, you know, physical move and body changing and, you know, a whole new person to love, all these things at the same time. I don't know, like I feel like sometimes on some days, like presence is all I've been able to manage, you know? Because the future tripping it just overwhelms you too much. And I think I'm only just now in a place where I felt, I guess, physically grounded and landed in our new home, and also like some sense of rhythm to our daily lives now that I feel like I have been able to ask myself the questions of like, okay, what do I dream like for? What do I desire right now? Like going beyond today and actually feeling like safe enough in my nervous system to actually start drifting beyond just today and whatever fires need to be put out today.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you speak about like feeling safe in your nervous system, what would you say, because you speak so beautifully about like self-nurturance. And so I'm wondering, because obviously this podcast we're speaking all about, you know, the embodiment of our own kind of personal nourished woman. And so what sort of like tools and practices and things like that do you draw upon to embody like what it is for you to be a nourished woman, or what does self-nurturance mean for you?
Yeah, I think for me, self-nurturance kind of starts with that self-prioritization in like within myself, just like even an acknowledgement that like I need to focus on myself in some way, shape, or form today in a way that goes beyond just like the, you know, the small stuff. Like I actually need to invest myself. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think when I think about what that looks like for me, yes, it's like the basics, like all the necessities of like, you know, have I slept well enough? Am I moving my body? Am I eating well? But it's also recognizing that like for me individually, like it's deeply important for me individually that I have spaces to be in my own energy alone and have the opportunity to like deeply self-reflect, which when you are like full-time parenting, you don't necessarily get that opportunity, you know, in abundance. And so for me, definitely it's been like, no matter what's urgent, no matter what feels like more important, I have to kind of be like super selfish with like, yes, I know that like, you know, all these people are waiting on things from me or this needs to happen, but I need to use the next 2 hours to literally just sit here and unpack some thoughts, because I know that that is actually so much more nurturing for me than maybe even, you know, ticking those things off the list and doing that thing that's been bothering me for 2 weeks. Like it's just this constant, like, what is the actual priority based on what I know to be very nurturing for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And so obviously we're speaking on a Saturday, and I know I remember seeing something about you kind of taking Saturday as your day. Is that how you prioritize that, or is it a daily thing, or is it like, you know, you have your that whole day on Saturday just for yourself? What does it look like?
Yeah, right now it does look like, so yeah, Saturdays are completely my own. I have both kids, like I homeschool Arlo, and then I've obviously got Zala who's only 15 months. So I'm with them all through the week. And
Yeah.
I'm co-sleeping with Zala, and I just don't have any pockets within my week that feel like I can go deeply enough into myself to kind of, you know, have that deep self-reflection. So I find that like I can get things done through the week. Like I have my copywriting business as well. So I can find times to
Yeah.
write or do other things through the week around other things. But then on Saturdays, it's like, what does my soul need? And that's going to be the priority on Saturday. Like, for example, you know, today we're talking at like 1 o'clock on a Saturday, and you know, there's like a long to-do list, but I've literally spent the last 3 hours like watching astrology videos. And because they have been like prompting some really deep self-reflection for me, that I just know that like I just can't access that surrounded by kids through the week. And so whatever my soul needs to feel like grounded is what happens on a Saturday. And I just need time and space to think and just be. And yeah, that's kind of what I prioritize on a Saturday. And that's kind of like, you know, with my partner, like he knows that like Saturdays he does all the things with the kids. I miss out on things, you know, like I don't watch my sons play soccer. I take him to training on through the week, but I forego the game because I'm just like, I need to have the Saturday. And then sometimes it leaks into Sunday a little bit if I really need it. But it's just like I'm grateful to have that understanding with him where he knows that like it's not just about me being able to get things done, but it's me being able to just be in my own energy and just only have to focus on myself for a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of how I structure it at the moment, which I'm sure will continue to change as time goes on, but you know, for right now.
Yeah. 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 No, I love that. It sounds divine, to be honest. um, I'm wondering though, like, because I'm sure there might be some people listening who are like, oh, that sounds lovely, but that feels impossible to do. Like, was there ever a time where it felt like a bit sticky or a bit, for you to do that? Or
all the time, because like we will go camping for a weekend, or it's my daughter's birthday and I've got 6 family members staying in my house over the weekend, or like this, like that rule doesn't flow that way all the time, because the weekends are also the time where we all get to, gather with people that we love. So I reckon there's definitely been guaranteed like one weekend a month over the last, I don't know, 6 months where that has not happened.
Yeah.
And in those situations, sometimes it's been more, to be honest, because there was like, moving weekend, then it was like family over, and then there's like all these other things. So for me, there's been weeks where it's like I haven't gotten that chance to nurture that part of myself. And what that ends up looking like is me losing patience through the week, feeling really disconnected from myself, feeling like it's going to take me so much more energy and time just to kind of get back to some sense of like, no, where am I? What am I doing? How am I feeling? And I've just had to be like, you know what? Like, it's going to happen. And I can't control it down to a T. I just need to like be in constant communication with my partner when it's like, I didn't get that this week and I'm feeling it. And maybe you're copying it. Maybe the kids are copying it. Maybe I'm, haven't eaten well this week because of it or whatever. I'm not going to put too much weight into like, oh, everything's now shit. I'm just going to be like, I really need it this weekend, and what do I have to do to move mountains to make this happen?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's that awareness too. It's noticing it in your body, and obviously how you're showing up in all the different areas of your life. You can definitely sense when you haven't had that time. I know that for sure.
Even like just as it
you
changes
mentioned,
too. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was
No,
just gonna say,
keep
like,
going.
my like my partner's parents, I've just bought a house up here on the sunny coast, and so they're going to be living here within the next month. And like it's the first time that we've ever lived within, close proximity to a grandparent for, to look after the kids or whatever when we needed it. And in my head I was just thinking like, wow, like the thought of having that option is probably going to change things again, as I can, like what's that going to free up? What's that going to, maybe the Saturdays won't become as intensive of like, I need the whole day here, because suddenly I've got like this beautiful afternoon once a week where I can shift things up. So I feel like just the more I try to be like, this is the way it has to be and I have to protect it because otherwise things are going to crumble, like that just messes with my head. And so I like the fact that like if I remain lightly gripped on it, then who knows, maybe be gifted more opportunities to be in that space as well.
Definitely. Yeah, because when you grip too tightly to things, and I mean that's when it all can come crumbling down, when it can't happen, and it becomes the end of the world for sure. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about community further into our conversation, but you mentioned it before when you brought up the concept of matrescence, and I really want to talk to you about that, because I think we don't speak enough about this, and it is a major transition in a woman's life. And I wanted to know what your experience has been from your first, now your second. Have they been different, and in what ways?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what matrescence was, or I had zero kind of insight into the fact that anything would even change. Yeah, we going completely blind to this whole world. And that's why I'm just so passionate about, like, if I see a new mum, I'm like, just know this word. So you can Google it when you need to. But I remember watching I don't know, a video on Facebook at the time, which was a woman talking about matrescence, and I was at least maybe 16, 18 months postpartum with Arlo, my first, and I watched the video and I was like, this light bulb just went on. And I was like, what? Do you mean that like this
Yeah.
whole thing that I've been feeling since becoming a mother actually has a name, and there's actually some, conversation around it? My mind was blown. And I think I just like rode the waves of emotions, confusion, doubt, like who am I, all those kinds of things after I had my first. And I just took it as it came, right? And I think going into pregnancy with Zala, I knew and could anticipate that like life is going to feel really different afterwards. Not in the sense that like things around me are going to look different, but I feel like I'm going to be in a different relationship to my external world, because I'm going to feel like I'm in a whole new relationship myself. And so I kind of knew that like when it starts to feel really murky, when I feel like I've lost myself, it's okay. And like I need to go through that. Like, don't fight that, basically. Whereas the first time around, I was like, what do you mean I feel lost? Like, what do you mean I don't know who I am anymore? Like, this is like a disaster. Like, this is like the worst. Like, the world is falling apart. Um, and whereas this time it was, okay, I know that this is the initiation into like, whatever identity I'm meant to, carry forward. And I think that this time around, I mean, it doesn't change how uncomfortable it is. It doesn't change how much, like for me this time around, like I didn't anticipate how much shame, and just like how negatively I could spiral. Like I really felt like my ego had a field day this time around, in a way that was kind of like, because I could anticipate it was going to come, and because um, you know, I don't know, you kind of trick yourself into thinking like, oh, I've got an awareness that things are going to get hard, and so somehow that like prepares you a bit and like is going to buffer some of the pain. But in actual fact, it kind of makes you delusional to like how human you really are. And then you actually, go through it and you're like, what? It's not supposed to be this bad, because I had some prep, right? Like I knew it was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh gosh. And then yeah, so this time around I just found myself in some really dark places sometimes. And then I just felt like I carried like so much shame over just being me, like in general, like nothing specific, but I just found myself really self-loathing at points. And I was like, wow, like this is like, I understand why I'm moving through this, but it doesn't make it any easier. And I'm also feeling like I'm just every day almost like facing off with a new part of myself that feels really uncomfortable. And I hate it. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. Like, I just want to get to the other side already. I want to da 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 da. And then, yeah. So I don't know if it makes it easier or not, but there was a sense of like more togetherness, knowing that this is something that all new mothers move through in their own way. And so it kind of makes you feel less alone in it, but at the same time, you still have to go through the uncomfortable parts.
Absolutely. And like same for me. I had a different experience. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't think I'd really heard the word until after I'd had Ari, my third.
Yeah.
So, and then once I heard it, same thing. I was like, oh, that's the word that explains how I felt each and every time, and how much it changed, and with each child as well. Like, and I think it's the same as when you're going into having your first child and you're like, it'll be like this and I'll be like this and this will happen. And it's just, you have no control.
Yeah.
The only thing I suppose that comes is a little bit more experience each time. But again, like you said, it's like just a whole different ball game with each child and how they are and how you navigate that and what you have going on at the time. And yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting, actually. So
No worries.
You are someone who, you mentioned this before, you have a copywriting business. You're also homeschooling, which I'd love to talk a little bit more about because I think it's so interesting. And yeah, and you're a mother of two and you have a toddler. So, And so like how, people like to talk about the elusive balance. I'm not sure whether that actually exists, but how do you kind of lead yourself through all of those different roles that you have?
Yeah. I don't think that there's no balance. I don't feel like balance is like attainable in many ways. I feel like there is it's funny because I have mixed feelings about this, because I know that many of my own personal attributes and like strengths are born from like you know, kind of coping mechanisms in some way. So I definitely know for myself, like when I feel a sense of there's stuff to be done, like I'm the kind of person that just kind of like jumps in, gets the stuff done. And I know that that's not just kind of like something you can just teach someone. I feel like it's born from my sense of feeling like, feeling inadequacy, or feeling like I'm gonna, fail if I don't do a bunch of like, just get on top of everything. And I feel like it comes from a place that's not necessarily healthy, but I feel like I rely heavily on my on those kind of attributes to kind of do lots of things at the same time, if that makes sense. And so I try to just, I don't know if that makes sense. As I'm listening to myself say it again, I'm like, yeah, because I mean, I've talked about this before in terms of like other like career, like in jobs and stuff like that. Like where I've looked at like what are my strengths here, and then gone, oh, hang on, like that's actually born from people pleasing, or that strength is actually born from like a fear of failure or whatever. And so when I think of like the different roles that I have right now, I think that I kind of keep things moving, and I'm able to hold them all somewhat from a place of like, I don't want, like there's a fear of not being able to meet them all, but I try to see them as like integral parts of my vision and integral parts of like who I want to be and what I'm trying to create. So, I think that when it comes to obviously being a mother of a toddler, like that's the season I'm in, that's something that's there no matter what. If I look to my work and as a copywriter, I know that feeds my creative ambitions. It feeds, the the parts of my work that I absolutely love, that feed me back, that nurture me back. And then I look at like homeschooling, which, has its challenges and is very, it's time intensive and it's energy intensive. And at the same time, like I know that it is 1000% aligned with what I'm trying to create in our life. And it's like to think of not doing it actually creates a whole lot of dissonance within myself and my body, and for my son too. Like it's so like I don't believe that like homeschooling is for everyone. Like I feel like you either know that it's what you need to do or what you want to do or not. But like for us, like it's always been from day dot that like for him specifically and his needs and his style of, being, learning, doing, it was just like no brainer. And so it's kind of like, I know that all of these roles are integral to not just like how my family moves and runs, but like the vision of the life that I want to create. And so knowing that makes me feel less like resentment towards any of them, and more so like this is the menu that I have to create and run with in life. And how I do that gets to be up to me. Like I don't have to do it the way that other people are doing it. And that's the part that I think that makes it a bit easier. Like I have all these hats, but I consciously don't, play them all at the same time. Like I do have boundaries around my work and when I work, and I'm not available to people all the time. And I'm, I have long lead times on things. And I, with homeschooling, like we don't, fit ourselves into some kind of regimented schedule, or, we have rhythms set up where it's super relaxed and we can kind of be adaptable. So I feel like all of those things contribute to me being able to design things on the fly and stay stay fluid with things, which I think is really important when you're wearing multiple hats, because if you're putting boxes around how things have to be done, then you're going to hate doing it all.
Absolutely. I think too, like, it's a constant refinement, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like what we were talking about before with with nourishment and self-nurturance, and it's like constantly refining that, not being too attached. Because I actually wasn't sure with the homeschooling journey how I wasn't sure if that was something you guys always knew you wanted to do, or it was something you just decided to do, at a point, or whether it was even a tricky decision, because I think for some, like, I definitely considered it at one point, but I think maybe you're right when you say people know whether they're up for it or not.
Absolutely, because it is hard, and it is also very you need you need to shift your whole lifestyle around to make it work, and it's also something that has to work for both the child and the parent, and also the siblings are in that environment, and it also has to work for how the child actually thrives. And then it's also what about me as the adult? Like, do I enjoy being in that place of constant response to topics and questions and situations that I would maybe prefer not to be in 24/7? I think that for us it was always something that we knew we always knew it was on the cards, and we were going to just stay in response to Arlo's signs and what he showed interest in. And I've kind of assumed I guess the person, I'm the one that's, I guess, leading that side of our family at the moment, but we've always kept it as it doesn't all fall on my shoulders. And if it gets too much for me at some point, then that's cool. We can either look at how another kind of arrangement, maybe there's drop-off programs that we take him to. Maybe if he starts showing interest in school, we have that conversation. We've kind of put it as term by term. So we take the whole thing term by term. And even if I look to, we only officially started it from the beginning of the year. We're now in term 3. I've already made changes to how we're doing it based on how it's felt for both of us. So we went in term 1 kind of all guns blazing. It was basically focused on just finding community, settling in, checking out how does this want to work for us? Then term 2, it was okay, cool, we've found these things that really light him up and that feel really good for me too. Let's go in. Oh, hang on, I've got a toddler in the mix, and I'm recognizing where this is actually extra challenging, doing this with a toddler in the mix. And so that was a learning kind of term. And then term 3, I actually cut back on a bunch of things and changed things up, because I recognized, okay, I'm there along for the ride in his homeschool journey. And that's, 5 days of the week where I'm getting too excited, investing all of my energy into how to, facilitate this week for him, that I'm actually not prioritizing how I can use some of that time to nourish myself. And maybe some of the lessons that I want to teach my kids are going to be modeled based on what they see me doing for myself in that time. And it just, something turned as to homeschooling doesn't have to look, or teaching or learning doesn't have to look like I think it does. No. And what are the actual values I want my kids, learning in this time? And so I actually cut back on some things for him and was actually, dude, on these days, mum's booked in to do these things for her, and you're coming. And he was, and he's actually loved it. And on a Monday, we're going to, I do a group workout class out in the park. And just from prioritizing that and being sorry, dude, Mondays are for me and you're coming along, he actually he's doing his own exercise in the park, and he's making friends in the playground, and he's now we've got this fun thing going where he's he's kind of like my trainer in the park. He's like, Mum, can you run a bit faster next time? Can you do like, and I'm just like, we're having these like moments that I'm like,
Yeah.
this would only be born if you were actually, if I was letting you see me in these vulnerable moments and I was
Yeah.
actually like doing life beside you. Because I think one of the main things that there's his name's, I think it's Stark Raving Dad on Instagram. He's a homeschooling dad and he has a podcast. And I remember listening to the podcast like before I started homeschooling Ella. And there's one thing that he said that stuck with me, which was, for us, homeschooling is not about, me being their teacher or anything like that. It's like, my goal with homeschooling is that we get to grow up alongside each other. We get to grow up together. So I want my kids to see me growing up as much as I get to be there to see them growing up. And that really stuck with me, because I was like, I'm still growing up too. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's really like valuable for our kids to see us growing up and making mistakes or choosing to
Yeah.
do things and getting excited or whatever. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of the approach that I'm using for our homeschooling journey, is just like, just learn alongside each other and just trust that that's valuable.
Yeah, wow. I actually really love that so much. And I've always thought, even with mainstream schooling or whatever, kind of schooling setup you have for your kids, there is still so much that like we need to be teaching them in the homes as well. It's not, like a send your child to school and they're going to learn everything they need to know. Like, no, we know that's not the case. So like Jonty and I, for example, take a lot of responsibility in, doing things like that and teaching them about our values and what's actually important to us. And, just, teaching them obviously the life skills, but I love that, the way that you just articulated it, because it is like growing up alongside each other, and we do have a responsibility to have that experience with our kids. And it also made me think about, having them with us for things, because I think like I've even noticed within myself, times where I felt like, and obviously space is a beautiful thing and a vital thing. It's definitely been that for me. But I think I have always thought, oh, I need to do everything outside of, the normal kind of day-to-day stuff I'm doing with them by myself. Like if I'm going to do a workout or something like that, then I'm just going to go do it by myself. But there actually is a lot of, I don't know, like enrichment and value in taking them along with you and them seeing that, especially I think as a mum, or all parents, but as a mum, them actually seeing you do those things for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, like you said, space is so important, and I feel like there's ways that I know for myself, like I'm gonna have to weave in more space through the week alone, because that's really nurturing. But you're absolutely right. I think that they learn so much about who we are through just watching and witnessing us do life. And whether it's working out or like having conversations with people, or creating something, like I don't know, like I always hear people say, when they talk about their parents or people that were role models for them growing up, that like you get to an age and you're just kind of like, I want to know you as a person. Like I don't want to know you as like my dad or as my mom. Like I want to get to know who you are as a person, because perhaps growing up they didn't get to know them as a person. They just knew them as like mom or dad or whatever. And I feel like I want my kids to know me as a person. And I feel like sometimes in the day-to-day mix of life, the busyness, the stresses, all the things, that it's hard. It's hard to kind of find that time to do that, or find the moments to do that. And in a way, I kind of see it as like, if I'm doing life beside them ongoing, there's more of a chance for that to happen, and for them to pick up on things that perhaps would have been done, while they're at school or whatever. But it's there's going to be, good sides and hard sides to whatever path we choose. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to your values and how you choose to live them out in the times that you have together.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. I think too, like, I was just making me think about like matrescence. I feel like it's not even just in when you kind of have the child in that first, however long. I think it's like a constant journey you go on at different ages. Because like I know for me, having a now 9-year-old and what comes with that, I feel like a new mum all the time. you know?
Yeah, because you've never parented a
So
child at
that
that
just
age before.
no, no, and it's a wild ride, that's for sure. And so yeah, it made me think when we were talking about that before. It made me think that yeah, like it's like I think it's constant. And then even I suppose you experience it once your kids have kind of moved on, or they're living their own lives. It's like getting used to that, the empty
I even
nesting, so
think
to
of it
speak.
I even think of it as like my parents now. Like, what is it like
Mm,
to be a parent of, a 36-year-old that is going like has her own family, that is navigating the challenges of that period of life. Like, what's that
mm,
like to be a parent of that? Because even like you're always a parent, right, for the rest of your days.
mm,
And even if you're not like, caring for them within your home, or they're now an adult, there's still this sense of a relationship to being their parent and being a mother or a father. And so
yeah.
I often look to my parents and just be like, one day I'm going to be at that point, and
Mm,
that's going to feel wild and new. And I don't know if we can
yeah.
really ever truly understand it until we get to it anyway.
No, absolutely not. No. So we were speaking about your forms of nourishment being movement, and obviously the way you take care of yourself every day. And I know creativity is a really big one for you as well. Um, and I suppose I wanted to know how creativity plays a part in your personal nourishment journey, and what kind of creative practices you integrate into your either everyday or just your life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, creativity is a big one. I feel like I'm missing a tool for life if I'm not kind of playing with creativity
Mm.
in my life. And it's funny, I was actually recently listening to a podcast episode with Will I Am from the Black Eyed Peas, and he was talking about creativity, and he was talking about the way that creativity for him is like a sponge, like it absorbs in the world, it absorbs, its environment, like the water, and then it has to
Yep.
like then it rinses, and it like lets all the water out, and he rinses the water out. And he described creativity as like this process of absorbing and then rinsing. And I loved that because it
Mm.
was like that is what creativity is for me. It's I'm going to take the world around me, what I'm experiencing, just, anything, and then I'm like metabolizing it, and I have to then express and kind of,
Mm.
translate, just rinse that world or that perception or that environment as I've taken it in. I get to rinse that out of me in some way, and that is my creativity. And for me, that is predominantly through writing, and it
Mm-hmm.
allows me to just, yeah, make sense of the world, make sense of my world. And without it, I feel like I've just got a whole lot of unmetabolized food in my body. I feel like I've got a whole lot of like
Yeah.
unmetabolized life happening within me, and I'm just I'm unable to feel that sense of release, and like I've been there, I've had that, I've let that go, I can move on to the next thing. I feel a bit, you feel a bit blocked up otherwise.
Yeah. And I suppose if you keep going with the sponge analogy, it's kind of like the water just sits there and like gets a bit
Gets dirty and
stagnant,
and
and
gross. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
um and also I think, well, I'm going to I assume that kind of joy and play is really important to you as well. Would you say that's where, because I know you've just started dancing again and you were doing it back in WA, is that your form of play?
Yeah, 100%. It's
Yeah.
I you know what? The one thing that I wish someone reminded me of when I became a mother again was like the powerful nature of music. Like I feel like when I get
Mm,
into moments of like, life's changing and moving, sometimes I forget that music is like as powerful as it is, and like, being able to put on a
yeah.
song and just let it completely shift your vibe and just move your body, and just the way that that can like instantly change everything is just so
Mm,
big. And dancing for me is a way to, yeah, just connect in with like parts of myself or a part of the human experience that feels so much lighter, so much more innocent and playful. And in my like my
yeah.
nature is very, I get serious like way too quick. And I get, into these states of like
Feels true.
deep
Yeah.
thought and just so
Yeah.
intensely serious. And like all it takes is just
Mm,
for like sometimes I just need to like put a comedy show on and just like watch
yeah.
myself melt into like, a different state. And I'm like, whoa, why have I
Yeah.
been so serious? This is ridiculous. So, yeah, dance definitely reconnects me back with that joy, playful, innocent, light feeling.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, and it's the same in our household. And I quite often will put on some music myself, and it'll be kind of more of a like somatic release because I've just got some kind of stagnant energy or something. But then other times it'll be a piece of music that the kids and I will just, dance around to like, absolute buffoons. And, and sometimes it's like, a Disney track where I can just belt it out. And, it's like,
Yeah.
it's so true. Music has the power to transform. And, even when things are feeling a little bit tense in our household, all it takes is like for me to just put on a song and everything just, yeah.
Yeah. I really got
I
to
wanted
like
to talk to you
notice.
as well. No, you keep going.
Sorry. I really got to notice the power of music and sound when Arlo was born, because he's super, super sensitive to sound. Like he's in his human design, like he's low sound. He has
Okay.
this like he just absorbs it in a way that I had never seen before. And I remember going out with him once, and we went to go check out some house, and we went in there, and the lady had meditation music playing on in the background. And he walked into the
Yeah.
house completely happy, walked in, and his whole like face changed, and he was just walking through the house, and he was on the verge of tears. And I remember being like, what's wrong? Are you getting a bad vibe from this place or something?
Mm.
He was like, can you just ask them to turn the music down? And I did, and he just transformed back into this
Mm.
whole other person. And
Wow.
watching him just be so sensitive to sound, and watching how it directly impacts his emotions, and like just it was just wild to me. And so like now I'm just so conscious of what kind of music too like we put on, and how like it
Mm.
can completely change everything. And when there's like a song that lifts you up, it's like almost like this anchor. Like it's just every single time it's going to have that same impact on how you feel. And I just feel like
Yeah.
knowing that can create so much like consistency and stability of like, if I need to feel this way, I know that I've got something that can support me like to get back to that place.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And it's also like, I mean, it translates into so many different areas of your life too. Because like I know when I need to do like really concentrated work, I have to have something on, in my
Mm.
ears or playing behind me. That's either the alpha waves or some kind of focus music. And it's ridiculous. I feel like I kind of drop into, like this kind of creative coma and then come out and be like, right, I can turn that off now and carry on with
Yes.
life. I was actually speaking recently to a friend about the power of music, and she's a part of a choir, and she was speaking about what it's like to harmonize with somebody and how that you can actually feel what's the word I'm looking for, like you can actually, it's like it's like a similar kind of energetic wave or something like that happens when you listen to like sound healing. It's like this,
Mm.
I don't know, like frequency, And she said she experiences it when she's in the choir as well, which is something that she does, for her kind of play and, and creative joy and all those sorts of things. But yeah, she said she experiences the same thing. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it just like
Music would,
heals part of
do
you
that.
that you don't even like know how to touch
Mm.
otherwise, you know?
Absolutely. I wanted to speak to you about, like, we kind of touched on it a little bit before when we were talking about, balance that doesn't exist. But I wanted to speak to you about your business, and just being a founder while also being a mother, and kind of where your business is at now. And I know you mentioned before about the boundaries and, how important that is to you. And yeah, I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, because I think this is something that I see a lot of my clients experience, and just like friends, and, even if you're working in a professional role, but I think especially as a founder, because obviously, well, I feel like as a founder, there's always a gazillion things that can and, we feel like maybe we should be doing. And so, yeah, I just want to speak specifically about the season your business is in and how you, kind of navigate that alongside being a mother and being a founder as well.
Yeah, I think that this is like a really important conversation because I think that we can kind of group together, what it's like to be in business or what it's like to be a mother, like without acknowledging the different seasons of both motherhood and the different seasons of entrepreneurship at the same time. So I think that for me, there's been real like lessons in acknowledging my capacity right now in terms of what do I have to gift my business, and in return, like what are my expectations in receiving back from my business, and why am I in business right now? Like, is it because I want to continue having like and nurturing beautiful relationships, which is one of mine. Like for me, the role that my business serves in my life right now is like, yes, of course, an income and providing for my family, but it's also like alongside that, I work in my business for the incredible people I get to work alongside, like that community element and that relationship element. And then there's also the creative element, right? So those two things, if they're the most important things about business for me, how can I make sure that my business serves those things at the same time as, letting go of any other elements of what it means to be in business right now that perhaps doesn't necessarily, serve me in this moment. So I find that, like, even if I look to, my role as a copywriter, and I think to others in my industry, to be honest with you, most of the copywriters that I know, follow, see promoting their work online are mostly in like their maiden years. And I don't really know, like I'm sure there's many I know that there's many copywriters, that are mothers balancing it all, but they're not, for me anyway, like they're not, maybe if they're in the baby years, they're not necessarily engaging with, say, their marketing efforts in the same way that someone that in their early 20s is engaging with their marketing efforts. And so it was like a good opportunity for me to be like, okay, how does me, the mother in these very early, toddler years, doing this business, what do I have capacity for, and how can I adjust, say, like how I market my business and what I prioritize? So for me, my business is very much the copywriting side of my business it's not brand new. It's not in the very early stages. It's been around for a few years. I've formed really beautiful relationships within that business, and I'm grateful that I have, leveraged my my skills at, nurturing relationships, in the sense that I have a lot of return clients in that space. So that's allowed me to kind of maintain this level within my business where I'm not focused on like scaling, or I'm not focused on, creating 50 million other offerings. Like I'm just plugged into nurturing the offerings that I do have and doing them well to the best of my ability. And then, maintaining relationships with those that are in my world at the same time as, now that I'm finding myself wanting to be a bit more out there and forward facing online and stuff like that. It's okay, cool. What other relationships can we nurture? But I think knowing where my business is at, what it needs to, feed back into me and my family at the same time,
Mm,
has helped me kind of figure out what my priorities are. Because,
mm,
I think that, like you said, the to-do list when you're a founder is never ending, and where
mhm.
you feel like you've kind of gotten somewhere and ticked all the boxes, there's a million other ideas that you feel like you could act on or want to explore, or just things that pop up
Yep.
that need doing. And I think that it's just important to recognize, what is actually like, why are you in business, and is this going to serve you for this current season,
Mm,
knowing that it can change tomorrow. Like, I'm very much
yeah,
open to the fact that, like, tomorrow I
absolutely.
might decide that I want to have a completely different direction in the business. And that's the benefit of,
Mm,
looking after your own business, is that you get to make those creative choices and you get to change the direction. Um, so yeah, just what do you need now, and how can you make it work for now without expectation of
mm,
it's always going to be like this?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's that constant refinement thing again. And I
Mhm.
really like that you brought up, just the acknowledgement of what we actually have the capacity for, and less attachment to like how it should be done or what I should be doing, and more like what can I actually do? Like what is actually the most relevant for me? And I think that's where, there's a lot of talk about sort of sustainable and regenerative business, but like that's what it's about. It's less about what you feel like you should be doing and more about what you, and like honoring the season of life you're in, which we spoke about before, and also what you actually have the capacity for, and then prioritizing from there. And that you're not going to be able to kind of show up in your work in the way you are without doing those, the like without spending that time alone, without all the other things that you're doing, during your week and your days to kind of regenerate yourself. You can't show up in your business without that.
No, everything feeds into everything. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I see it all the time. Like, how, if I've not prioritized what I need for myself, um, through the week, it just ripples out into, relationships,
Mm-hmm.
business, health, everything. Um,
Yeah.
you really just, you can't get away with it. You can't get away with neglecting yourself and feel
No.
like every other area of your life
No.
is still going to keep running.
No. Absolutely. Um, I wanted to speak to you about community, and obviously I'm aware that like you've had this big move, so you have, or had, and still continue to have, I'm sure, your community back in WA. But how have you, because we know that community and connection is extremely important, like obviously for our overall, health and well-being, and for that support, and yay for grandparents moving nearby, like yes. um, but how have you found, finding a new community where you are now?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's still evolving. I feel like when you move physically somewhere new, or I've found it to be this feeling of like, okay, you're going to land somewhere new and make all these new connections by, all going to these different things, getting in touch with people, online, and like, meeting people through people. And um, when
Yeah.
you also, you know, homeschool and have a toddler, and, have another move in the mix and all the things, with how
Mm,
busy life is, in my brain, I was kind of like, that's going to happen relatively quickly. But I think that literally, what, like 9 months since we moved here, it's still evolving and it's still kind of being formed. And like, I think that that's been a really big reminder to me in terms of like, if to build really nourishing, sustainable, and like relationships that have longevity and that are like on foundations that
yeah.
feel really grounded, you have to be open
Mm-hmm.
to that taking time. And so in my experience, I'm really,
Mm,
really lucky and grateful that I've had like my sister-in-law and brother-in-law here, and had that family connection. And then have a really beautiful online community where there have been women that I've connected with through that. And then also
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about homeschooling is that I end up meeting a lot of other mums that are also hold
Mm.
similar goals and doing similar things day to day, where we
Values.
can have similar values. And so
Mm.
I've met a lot of mums through there as well. And so I feel like I've met some incredible people, and I'm slowly starting to form that community here. And at the same time,
Mm.
I'm just like noticing my own inner dialogue around like, oh, I don't yet have like the solid base of community, say, that I did back in Perth, and I wonder when that's gonna, and how much effort should I, like,
Yeah.
am I not putting enough effort, or da 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 da. And it's just like, whoa, like when I think about how it's like the significance of relationships in our life, like these, it's not a
Yeah.
quick and fast thing, it's a slow nurturance,
No.
it's a slow cook on these things. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something I've experienced as well. I mean, we've been here for 4 years now where we are. But it was like a massive shift moving away from our friends, everyone, all of our friends. And same for me. I had some family here, but you're right. Like it totally takes time. And I think it requires you to be really open to it, because and as you said, it's like the depth of connection you have with people as well. And I think the older I get, I'm sure you're the same, it's like I don't actually want so many like surface level friendships anymore. I want to be able to have friendships where we really like, talk about all the things, like really
Yes,
go to all the
absolutely.
places. And so that's harder to find. But also I had to acknowledge like my part in that as well, in being like a little closed off at times, and like, very much ready to like meet new people, but then having some walls up at times too, and actually allowing that community to form around me, because I think there was a bit of that kind of ingrained, I'm here, I'm taking care of my family, I'm doing all these things, and I can just do it all myself. And, I'll be
Mm,
fine. Like I don't need, all of these people around me. But I think, yeah, the walls coming down has just then allowed so many more amazing friendships and relationships and connections to kind of blossom. There's less of that self-insulation happening, which has been probably the biggest
yeah,
learning curve for me, having been here. Yeah,
yeah. I feel, and we're
yeah.
so
And
good at
also
that,
you
aren't
have
we?
less
Like it's like a
time.
protective thing.
Yeah.
Yes, less time,
Yeah.
absolutely. You do. Even like with, you know, like I'm someone like, I know that you resonate with this, with like, we love a good long voice note. We love a good, like, let's get deep into something and have a good chat. And like,
Yeah.
realistically through the day, like how many of those can I keep going every single day, And there's just times when,
Yeah.
you want to be going into those really deep, juicy conversations with, friends, but you don't necessarily get to have the space and time or the environment around you as
Mm.
often as you want to be able to do that, where you can actually
Yeah.
get more vulnerable and break down some of those, whatever you call it, like the barriers that you've got there. And so I've
Yeah.
definitely recognized that within myself. And I've noticed where um, I am witnessing already established, relationships and community around me that I'm kind of entering into around me. And I'm looking at these
Mm.
women who have beautiful friendships and relationships that, I'm witnessing how much they are prioritizing each other, and how much they
Mm.
are willing to go above and beyond for each other, and not just kind of like know that they've got each other's backs, but like they're generous with their support, with their
Mm.
encouragement, with their acts of kindness or whatever it is. And I'm just
Yeah.
witnessing that, and I'm taking note of like, what kind of friend do I want to be, what kind of relationships do I want to
Mm.
have in my life, and kind of using this new chapter as like an opportunity to kind of figure out like, how do I want to be a better
Redefine that.
friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had a similar experience in kind of like, yeah, I love what you said about the way those women are, because I think, like you see those memes where it's like, and look, it can be like this with kids and all the things we have going on, but, you see those kind of memes that pop up sometimes about like, we'll get together in 6 months, 27 days and 3 hours kind of thing. And that's how far in advance you have to book stuff. But then I feel like there's also like there's a follow through sometimes that's missing these days. Like there's like the commitment to this friendship, to this person, that like when I say I'm going to be there for them and do something for them, I'm going to do it. And just, yeah, I really kind of navigated that a lot and kind of made a declaration for me, knowing how important my friendships are, to be like, no, like when I, unless there's some crazy extenuating circumstances, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there, like that's how I would hope someone could show up for me. And so that's how I'm going to show up for the women in my life.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the last thing I really want to get into with you is our deep love of food, because that is obviously very important when it comes to us embodying our nourished woman. Do you have, because I know you're connected to your culture, do you have like a lineage of cooks in your life? Has this kind of your love of, cooking and food, has that been passed down, or is that something that's just kind of been born from you? I'd be very interested to know.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, like, the women in my family have always been the ones nurturing everyone from the kitchen, and I've always had a really beautiful kind of, like, when I think to my background and family and all of that, like I always look with fond memories to, things my mum would make, my grandmother and all of that. And I think that I remember my mum actually telling me recently, she goes, "You were never interested in being in the kitchen or cooking or food
Yeah.
when you were younger." Like she goes, she actually said it was surprising to her that now as an adult I show so much interest, because she goes, it was just not, you didn't care at all as a kid. It was more my brother that actually was more interested in it. But I think that as I've gotten older, I've the more of a connection that I've formed with myself and recognize just how big a role, where we come from plays in our own identity and everything that we create moving forward. I think that I've just formed a deeper respect for nurturing those traditions and nurturing those parts of our heritage that, feel like home. And I think that, again, when you become a mother as well, that role of, nurturing those traditions and nurturing the family from that place of, the kitchen and from the aspect of food, you realize like that's me, like that's the role that I am here to play, if I want to create that kind of same thing for my kids as I had growing up. And from there it kind of just grew, and I don't know, I just have a real respect for food and for the ways in which it can nourish us. And I had my whole journey of like, I think I was like in my mid 20s when I had a like full like health transformation and started looking at food from the place of like everything that I eat nourishes me and nurtures me in a different way, and I saw food in a different light, and that was from a pure health perspective. And then that then grew into like, okay, and then what about the other layers of that nourishment, not just the the nutrients, but like the how it makes me feel, what is it, like that sense of warmth or coziness, or and then from there it extended to like, what meals do I want to like keep alive, and what feelings do I want to create for my family, and how food connects us back to where we're from. Because my partner is Australian, and obviously my side is Portuguese, and I feel like my I'm the first generation Australian, like in terms of my family line. My mum and dad were both born in Portugal but came over here when they were 7, and so there's
Yep.
this, I don't know, there's as I think a lot of families can relate to, like there's kind of like this immigrant background where our parents really had to just come in and assimilate and just fit in, and there's this sense of some of the
Survive.
traditions
Yeah.
and stuff were lost along the way,
Mm.
and some of the things that maybe they had in their home wasn't kind of then imprinted into our home. And so I have this real like passion for kind of figuring out what I want to preserve, what I want to keep moving forward. And a lot of that has to do with what's happening in the home, in the kitchen, what we're eating, what's being spoken. And so I see food very much connected to like heritage right now. And I think that food excites me. It feels like a whole world of nourishment on every level. And the more that we can like just play in that world, I think that it benefits everyone, like from adults to children alike.
That's it. And it's like what you were saying too about kids kind of watching us and being along and, part of the journey. And I feel like it's the same so you may not have shown a huge interest in the cooking, but you were very aware of it. And, the fact that your mum and your grandmother were there, doing the cooking. And I think obviously having the kids involved is wonderful, but I think even just knowing the importance that you hold it sacred, or that you have a respect for it, lays a foundation for them. That they then, similar to you, might pick up when they're older.
Yeah, I think
which
that
is
connection.
Good to know.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you don't have to be interested in cooking to have a respect for food and the way in which it nourishes. Like I think that I even I don't know. It's funny because I've been listening to some podcasts lately where, certain guests will talk about their childhood, or like what significant parts of their life, contributed to where they are today. And all of them talk about, whether it's like always got to do with like the family home and the way that like they were nurtured in some way. And most of the time it has to do with like these really sensory memories that they hold around like what it was like sitting around the dinner table, or what it was like when like something, the kitchen is always mentioned in some way, shape, or form. I think that food holds such a significant role in how we relate to our upbringing as well. And I feel like there's just so much to be gifted to our kids in just letting them have these memories of powerful food moments and shared experiences.
Absolutely. Do you have any like rituals or anything like that you as a family, or even for yourself, like if you're cooking or when you're eating, do you have anything that you like to kind of do?
Right now, not really. And it's funny, like my partner and I have tried a few times to like form some kind of rituals around it. And it's always felt a bit like, I think that we're doing a ritual because we want to do a ritual, or we're trying to create some kind of habit here, or make it really special, or create some kind of consistent thing that we do. And we've tried doing it and then it just doesn't feel like us. And so I'm feeling like we're just yet to land on our thing, which I'm okay with, but I'm also like, I'm looking forward to kind of developing more ritual around those times for our family, because I think that it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of your absolute favorite things to cook? Like, what do you love to cook?
I just love cooking things that, I don't know, I have a nostalgic memory around. Most of like every time my mum or dad come and stay and visit, I'm always like asking my mum, like, can you teach me how to make this that we had when, or it's usually always just kind of some kind of Portuguese dish, because I just want to, have that connection to it again. But like
Mhm.
day to day with the kids and just our regular kind of meal times, I just love like simple, clean kind of
Yeah.
food that doesn't, it's not too complicated, and it's just, it
No.
focuses on like the ingredients, like it just enhances that. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's that Mediterranean roots, but it just always is
Mm.
simple and fresh
Mm.
and yummy.
Yeah. Yes. That is my absolute
I
favorite
think we
things
have
to eat
very
as well.
similar styles of cooking too.
Yeah. I'm sure that in a past life I was a nonna or like something like that. I'm like, there is some Mediterranean blood in here somewhere, even if there actually isn't. I'll need to have my DNA done. I might be disappointed, I think. But oh my God, yeah, I so resonate with all of that. So I want to ask you one final question just about food. And that is, if you could, I would say cook, but maybe more so eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
One meal.
This is a really hard question.
I know.
Um,
It's hard.
because I'm such a sweet tooth. Like I love sweet,
Okay.
but I could not eat a sweet thing every day, right? But it would probably be a seafood dish. It would probably
Mm.
be, um, it'd be like one of two things. So like my partner and I, we traveled quite a lot, and in Jamaica, when we were there, we had the most incredible fish tacos. And so I have this soft spot
Mm.
in my heart for a fish taco. But on the other side, my mum makes the best, like cooked, like prawns that are cooked in in scotch,
Mm.
and they're like
Oh,
the
wow.
sauce that is just like dripping off these prawns is just like, and then you dip the bread in. It's
Oh,
delicious. And so it would be either those prawns or it would be like a fish taco.
oh my gosh. Yeah,
When
they're
you
both
and I
amazing.
finally get together, we will,
For a
and you're
meal.
here on the sunny coast or something, you'll have to come over and I can make us a big like thing of delicious prawns.
The prawns, yeah. I do
Yeah.
love a fish taco as well. I'm actually only relatively new to fish tacos in the last couple of years. And as a kid, I didn't ever really eat much seafood. It's only been as an adult that I've like just gone, hell for leather with seafood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love a fresh taco. So yeah, I need to have some of those prawns for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this. Obviously, as I said, like you're my first conversation. And it's interesting because I feel like you are, you've been really important, I think, on this journey for me. Like when we worked together last year, you were kind of at the very beginning of that, and now you're at the very beginning of this. And I don't know, it feels very significant.
Aw. It feels very like, I love the fact that you're doing this. Like I love the whole nourished woman, concept, because I feel like you can feel your devotion so hard to
Mm.
this, and you embodying that nourished woman. Like it just feels such a beautiful amalgamation of all of your values. And so I'm just stoked to,
Mm.
yeah, be part of it. Thanks for asking me.
Mm. Thank you. Thanks for everything. It was such a joy for me to have this conversation with Tara. As I mentioned, this was the very first episode that I recorded for season 1, and to be honest, there's no one else I would rather have recorded my first episode with, and it felt really, really fitting for the journey that Tara and I have been on. I hope that something in this conversation resonated with you, landed with you. I urge you to go and read some of Tara's Substack pieces. She is such a beautiful writer. If you are looking for someone to help you with copywriting this year, then I also suggest that you reach out. You can find all the different ways to connect with her in the show notes. And as always, if you love this episode, please share it with a friend or share it on social media. Don't forget to hit follow if you haven't already, and I would love for you to leave a review. Any way that you engage with this podcast means so much to me. So thank you. And again, welcome to 2024. We have a few more episodes left for this season, and I've left some really juicy ones till last. And I'll be back in to update you all on what's going to be happening for season 2. I'm very excited to share all the ways that this podcast will be developing this year. Speak soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Nourished Woman. I hope something in this conversation resonated with you, and if so, please share it with a friend. You can hit follow or write a review or simply share on social media. It would be amazing. Thank you so much again for listening. Until next time, take care of yourself.